It's a new day, guys. A new day to read some old-ass comics, and there is no old-ass comic I would rather read than the original Amazing Spider-Man. And for long-time viewers of the channel, and by a long time I mean like 3 months, that might come as a surprise, since when I first read Stan Lee and Steve Ditko's Amazing Spider-Man, I made fun of it a lot and didn't have that many unironically good things to say, and my score reflected that. But at that time, my only point of comparison was the stellar Batman Year 1, and having some more comics under my belt, coupled with some great discussion in the comments, has really changed my perspective and motivated me to at least finish Ditko's run at issue number 38. And even though there have been some stinkers, the last issue I read was probably my favorite in the entire series so far, so I'm really excited to see if my boys can really hook me in this time. We start issue number 11 with the return of Doc Ock, with this only being the second time a villain has returned, and unfortunately it didn't go super well last time, but hey, maybe this can break the streak. I do really like the retro Doc Ock art style, like he just kind of looks so much like a goblin, like not everybody needs to be hot. Also, I don't know if anybody else gets this when reading old comics, but when they do this citation thing, I get this little adrenaline rush, like, oh yeah, I read that, I did that thing. Oh, and I miss this writing. Doc Ock gets out of jail for good behavior, I'm not joking, and even Spider-Man is like, well, you know, everyone deserves a second chance. But as someone comes to pick him up, we see that it's Betty Brant, Peter's love interest and J. Jonah Jameson's secretary, who last time we saw totally skipped town. But you always gotta keep on your toes for this one, because it turns out her brother is in gambling debt and she's helping him out. One thing though I haven't really changed my mind on is the art. I know from y'all that the circumstances this was drawn on can't really be compared to something like Man Without Fear, but I'm still gonna do it because some of these panels are just so blech. And don't you think the writing is safe, because they really be thinking this was tough in the 60s. Sorry Doc Ock, I didn't mean to knock them into you. Oops, watch yourself. I wouldn't want you to skin your pink little knuckles when you fall down and go boo. God, that was really hard to read out loud. Anyways, you know the drill by now. They fight, Spider-Man wins, but Doc Ock is able to escape. And Peter and Betty make up, which, you know, good for them. And don't you think I would have forgotten about our beloved tier list, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is still a bowl of our mid soup from before, C tier. Well, I really hope you like Doc Ock, because we are running it back. But at least my main man J. Jonah Jameson's here this time. But this is pretty much the same go around with like a couple of twists, if you can even call it that. He kidnaps Betty and Peter gets the flu, so he loses his powers for like a second. So while he doesn't have his powers, they fight and Doc Ock wins and unmasks Spider-Man, but no one actually thinks it's Peter because he was so weak they thought he was just impersonating him to rescue Betty. Eventually he gets better and they fight, he wins. To be fair, like there is other stuff. Doc Ock releases all these zoo animals and there's this girl Liz Allen who has a big crush on Peter, but I'm covering double the issues from last time, so things like this are not really gonna make it in the video from now on. I guess this is technically better than the last one, but not by much, and I will still have to put it in C tier. Well, that was a pretty lousy start, but the next issue screams potential with the introduction of Mysterio. We open up to see Spider-Man apparently stealing all this stuff, and to be fair, he damn near wanted to last time, so not a crazy idea. So Peter's like, I must have a split personality, and visits a psychiatrist, but realizes he'd have to divulge his secret identity, and he abandons that route. So people hate Spider-Man obviously, but the one exception is actually Flash Thompson of all people. Flash is honestly really cute and has won me over, but we don't got time for that because Mysterio apparates and offers J. Jonah Jameson a deal to capture Spider-Man. It's also hilarious to me that they make fun of his uniform in universe, because like, what do you mean that looks lame, but you have nothing to say about the fucking Vulture who looks like this? Mysterio beats Spidey and simultaneously becomes a hero to the city and J. Jonah Jameson's man crush. I'm definitely impressed with how much Far From Home drew from this seemingly random issue. It kind of makes me want to rewatch that movie. This issue has mad potential, and by this point I was really getting into it, but they sell so hard with one of my least favorite story tropes. The villain exposits his whole plan and backstory when the hero secretly records him. The issue also ends really abruptly, but at least we get some JJJ in it, so I'm comfortable saying this is a strong B tier. But now we get the very first appearance of my favorite Spider-Man villain, the Green Goblin. I know that's a pretty basic take, but I'm a dumb Gen Z baby who's only seen the movies, so safe to say I am really excited to see where Gobby got his comic book start. And we get the Hulk as like a bonus, and I loved him when he was in Daredevil, so I'm excited to see him here. Oh, and I'm legally required to state that the Enforcers are in this story too, so nice, I guess. It's in this issue that I did some reflection, and coming back to The Amazing Spider-Man kind of felt like seeing an old friend. There is something about reading this corny ass shit that feels so cozy. Like for each of these issues credits, they make these little inside jokes where Stan and Steve are described the same, but they always poke fun at Sam Rosen who does the lettering, and it just kind of feels like you're chilling with your friends. And the consistent fourth wall breaks are honestly really endearing now. Like it's really hard to convey exactly, but like my POV, I work a 12-hour day at my job, I'm exhausted, I'm about to go to bed to wind down, I just bust out some Spider-Man and it's a nice time. I don't know how to quantify that, but it is something truly unique in my journey into comics thus far, and I would say the biggest value proposition of this series so far. Anyways, enough glazing, let's get back to the story. I don't know what happened, but the writing is noticeably better. Green Goblin's plan is basically to ask Spider-Man to star in a movie with him and the Enforcers and basically ambush him on set. And there's this really cute moment when the movie producer is like, this will be such a success, you'll be more famous than the Beatles. And I mean, the cultural reference isn't new, there's a ton throughout, but it's just funny that Spider-Man at this point in 2025 is totally more famous than the Beatles. So they take a trip to California, and this panel now lives rent-free in my head. They execute their plan in this cave when they're supposed to shoot, but that just happens to be where the Hulk is hiding out. My man just wants some peace and quiet, he does not deserve this. Overall, I really like this fight. Green Goblin escapes, Spider-Man captures the Enforcers, and the Hulk goes back to sleep. That was really nice, and I'd say it delivered everything pretty well in a nice package, and for an introduction to Green Goblin, that's an A tier. Through all my videos so far, I read every single comment, and one of the Spider-Man stories that is consistently recommended is Spider-Man Kraven's Hunt. So when I see this next issue introducing Kraven, I'm kind of excited because I know literally nothing about him. And the Chameleon's back. Yay! Okay, maybe I just don't understand what a kid in the 60s thought was cool, but like for Mysterio and Green Goblin, the two objectively coolest looking villains, they're like, yeah, we know they look silly, but you gotta take them seriously, okay? But then this Joe Exotic looking motherfucker, they just give it to us straight? So Kraven's like, I'm here to hunt Spider-Man, and JJJ of all people is like, well, good sir, we have a loss against those practices. I definitely see how a Kraven-centered arc could be really cool. Like as a villain, I think he's definitely one of my favorites so far. He's pretty intimidating, and I don't know if it's the art style, but he just looks so uncanny and off-putting. And I'm so happy to say that I think their fight is probably my favorite in the entire series so far. The last thing I want to say about this issue, and really what holds it back, is it's just kinda weird. I'm just gonna list the things that kinda made me double take. Like none of these on their own are insane, but as a whole they kinda left me with an odd feeling. Kraven gets his powers from an African witch doctor. Peter uses the word females and is kind of a sleaze. Like he has 3 different dates with 3 different girls and they all kind of fall through because he's like an asshole. And J. Jonah Jameson rewards Peter with a specifically milk chocolate bar. Despite all of these though, I think I'm still pretty comfortable putting this in B tier. But now, my friends, we have a very special issue because this is the very first Spider-Man annual featuring the Sinister Six. And look at all of our old friends here. I have heard of the Sinister Six somewhere, but for the life of me, I can't remember where. But the thing is though, we have just beat 3 of these villains, so how does this Suicide Squad come to be? Well, I hope you aren't holding your breath because we don't get that explained. But what we do get is some very forced in-universe advertisements for all the other marvelous men and women, such as Thor, Doctor Strange, Fantastic Four, Captain America, X-Men, Iron Man, Human Torch, and Giant Man and the Wasp. These are very awkward, but mostly inoffensive, but they won't work on me, Stan, because I take recs from you lovely people in the comments, and since I am pretty new to this whole comic book thing, as with all my videos, I want to hear your experience of what heroes or stories I should read with fresh eyes. Back to the story, the Sinister Six are like, well, last time this random girl Betty Brant was kidnapped, Spider-Man came, so let's run it back, shall we? But because Peter ditched a day of school, Aunt May's actually visiting Betty looking for him. I love how Aunt May introduces herself to the Sinister Six as Peter Parker's aunt, and she's absolutely hilarious in this. Like, Betty is like, oh, this guy Doc Ock, he's dangerous business, you gotta be careful. And then Aunt May is like, well, you know, my dear, he's a doctor after all, he just had some trouble with his arms. And then like Doc Ock is super nice to Aunt May and gives her like tea. The rest of the story consists of Peter having to defeat the Sinister Six one by one, kind of like a roguelike game. And honestly, at first that was my least preferred route because it's kind of the least creative, but I'm not gonna lie, it's really working for me here. And maybe because Steve Ditko finally got a reasonable deadline, the art here is noticeably better with like actual panel design, and all of the fights end with this one panel page that's low-key really good looking. Maybe it's the quantity, but as a package, I really enjoyed this gauntlet, and I feel like Spider-Man's power level is low-key higher here than in the movies. My man is straight up cleaning house. And when Spider-Man comes in for the rescue, Aunt May is like, you are so rude to barge in without knocking. Dr. Octopus would never. I think this issue has the best unironic humor for me. Like, there's this part where J. Jonah Jameson needs to get a message to Spider-Man, so he starts talking to this random spider, and I had me laughing my ass off. Even my ulcers have ulcers. After the story ends, we also get a ton of one-page for essentially every named character that has appeared in the series to date. And this just feels like such a love letter to the series thus far. We get detailed descriptions on how Peter sneaks out of his house, his web technology, and this is such a treat to read. It made me like nostalgic to like the Scholastic book fairs in the US where like I'd buy those like Star Wars books that would have needlessly detailed the smallest things that would never show up in a main story. Like, imagining you're a big time fan in 1964, reading this must have felt like the best day ever. But that's not it, folks. We get a behind the scenes on how Stan and Steve do their creative process in comic form, and the shade they throw at each other here is so interesting and equally hilarious. I was pretty surprised that they show each other beefing like they did in real life, and there's clearly a good creative banter between these two, and when I eventually finish Ditko's run in probably a couple of videos, this is what I'm going to think back to. The last thing I want to say about this section, which I thought was cool, is Ditko in comic form repeats the JJJ line about ulcers when just describing how arduous it is drawing these day after day after day. This is a 72-page issue, which I think might be the longest single issue I've read so far, but it is by far the best one yet. And not only an easy S tier, but the one I would probably recommend to the most trying to get the gist of this era without having to dive too deep into it. Well, coming off of that spectacular story, Daredevil, you old fart. Boy, these two just can't get away from each other. Also, I haven't been keeping track, but I'm pretty sure this is the first time we get Mary Jane referenced by name, whereas before she was just Miss Watkins' niece, but she doesn't appear physically just yet. There has been stuff about this love rectangle with Mary Jane, Betty Brant, and Liz Allen, but nothing consequential enough for me to mention in depth. But for now, I'm still on Team Betty for the moment. And I know I ragged on the in-universe ads in the anniversary issue, but my baby Daredevil, you can do whatever you want. Unfortunately though, the story is not doing it for me. The pacing too is really bad. Like, the fight not only is not appealing visually, but it's like 10 pages long and there's just nothing to speak of here. Daredevil saves it from F, but it was very, very close. Thankfully, the next issue has the much anticipated return of the Green Goblin. But there's just too much love rectangle and also too much Flash. This definitely caught me a little off guard. I've generally liked Flash, but they're relying on him a little bit too much. I think he works well, but only in small doses. This issue is just kind of boring. Like, it's another big fight, and they try to dress it up with this Spider-Man fan club that Flash starts, and Human Torch is here too, but it's just really not that interesting. Everyone's just kind of miserable. Like, Liz is sad because Peter's with Betty, Betty's sad because she thinks Peter has the hots for Liz, Mary Jane is apparently sick, Human Torch is pissy, Flash is pissy, Aunt May has a heart attack, and even JJJ is just kind of meandering. Honestly, I would put this in F tier, but I'm gonna bump it all the way to C because it's at least trying to give some actual stakes to the story, and this is really our first issue of the video that hasn't ended neatly and nicely. So I will at least give it that. Oh god, and the next one is also a big time stinker. The world is convinced he chickened out of his fight with Green Goblin, whereas he was doing so just to check on Aunt May right after she had her heart attack. And I just feel like there's a lot of missed potential here. Like, J. Jonah Jameson has like nothing to do this entire video really, but he does at least have this infectious smile. This issue really isn't that much worse than some of the other C-tier ones, but what really makes this such a chore is its length. It's just, I need money. Everyone hates Spider-Man. Oh, I can't fight crime since I gotta take care of Aunt May. And that just happens like 3 or even maybe 4 times in a row. I know I also said I wanted more Aunt May in the last video, but she is such a bland character here. If you had told me in this issue that there's no fights, I would have been pretty intrigued. Like, what interesting character moments do we get in that place? But this is really the worst case scenario for that, and I must put it in F tier. And now we're just back to the regularly scheduled programming with this next issue. In my notes, I literally just wrote bruh. And there's not even anything funny in these, like it's the same shit, but at least with the older issues, even if they were generic in a way, they were at least funny, short, or cute, but these last 3 have just been none of that. Like, I guess I could talk about the romance, Betty's seeing this other guy, but it is just plainly not interesting, and I'm not trying to waste your time by padding this video out, nor am I interested in wasting mine by editing filler content. To put it bluntly, most of the issues in this volume are not it, fam. And you know who actually defeats Sandman in this? The fucking cops, bruh. I should not have to say that 2 regular Joes should not be able to defeat a literal supervillain's. Cops need a nerf in this universe. It's another F tier. This compilation did not do it for me, and while I do feel a greater sense of appreciation for the series, it's mostly focused on those first 10 issues rather than these. I will make at least 2 more of these eventually to finish up Ditko's run, but my next immediate video is going to be revisiting Wonder Woman, but this time by Greg Rucka. So if you don't want to miss either one of those, hop on board and subscribe. Before I give this the old score, I want to reflect on some things I could have done better in my coverage of issues 1 through 10. Rewatching those, I didn't like how I organized them. A central issue for me is how do I compare like 5 random issues of 60s Spider-Man to like a 13 issue epic like Long Halloween? Well, I thought, you know, maybe I could do it by artist, but that would be hella long and I'd have to do a rating every like 5 videos and it would just be the same issue again. So I've made the decision that since it needs to be an arbitrary distinction anyway, I'm gonna do it based on purchases, since I really rate them mainly for the perspective of someone deciding what to buy and read, who's kind of getting into comics just like I am. So since I read the first 10 issues in volume 1, but I split it into 2 videos, I gotta re-rank them. So I'm gonna combine them and give it a whole of a 4 out of 10. As for this one, I'd say there are very high highs, but the lows are much, much lower than the first compilation. So unfortunately, I'm giving Amazing Spider-Man issues 11 through 19 a 2 out of 10. I'd say just read the anniversary issue and maybe the Green Goblin intro, but everything else just did not have the same charm to me. I was told it gets a lot better around issue 31, so I still have hope, but that's all for this video. Peace.